The day my family asked me to sell my condo to save my brother's latest disaster of a business, I was reheating leftover pad thai at 10:30 p.m., wearing the same wrinkled blazer I'd left the house in at 7 a.m. I remember staring at my phone, at my mom's text, reading it 3 times like maybe I'd misunderstood. "You're the only one doing well, honey. It's just a condo. Your brother's future is at stake. We need you to step up for the family." Just a condo. My condo. The one thing in my life that actually had my name on the deed instead of someone else's. I'm 34. My name is Lauren Mitchell. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm a project manager at a mid-sized healthcare tech company. I have a mortgage, a 401k I barely understand, and a coffee machine that feels more emotionally supportive than my entire bloodline. I put my phone down on the kitchen counter, next to the stack of medical bills I'd been quietly paying off for my parents for months, and felt something inside me finally stop. Not break. Break implies something shattered. This was worse. It was like a switch flipped from try harder to no more. My pad thai went cold while the group text with my family kept pinging. "You know Jake's not good with money, but he has a good heart. You don't have kids, Lauren. You don't need that condo like he needs this chance. You make 6 figures. You're fine." For the first time in my life, I looked at those messages and thought, what if I'm not the selfish one here? What if they are? This is the story of how my family used me like an ATM with a pulse, how I almost let them take everything I'd built, and how I finally decided that being a good daughter did not mean being their doormat. I grew up in a small town about 40 minutes outside Raleigh, the kind of place with one high school, one Walmart, and a church on every other corner. My dad worked construction when there was work and looked for opportunities when there wasn't. My mom was a medical receptionist who always seemed one bad week away from a migraine and a meltdown. I'm the oldest. My little brother Jake is 4 years younger. From as early as I can remember, our roles were assigned like costumes in a school play. Lauren, our mature one, such a little adult. Jake, our baby, our dreamer, he just needs a little extra help. When Jake skipped homework, the story was, he's a boy, boys mature later. When I missed one assignment because I had a fever, it was, Lauren, we expect more from you. I learned fast. If I was perfect, things were calm. If I messed up, there was no room for error because Jake already used up the family's grace. By middle school, I was babysitting neighbors' kids, doing my own laundry and sometimes Jake's, filling out my parents' online forms because you're better with computers, honey. I thought that's what being a good daughter meant. Money was always tight. Power would get cut off for a day or two until Mom sorted it out. We'd eat a lot of boxed mac and cheese and whatever was BOGO at Food Lion. But somehow, when Jake wanted baseball cleats or the newest Xbox game, they'd find a way. When I wanted to go on the 8th grade DC trip, Mom sighed and said, "We just don't have it right now. Besides, that's extra. We need to focus on needs, not wants." Apparently, my wants were negotiable. His weren't. High school made the roles more obvious. I got straight A's, juggled AP classes, and a part-time job at Target to save for college. Jake smoked weed under the bleachers, skipped class, and somehow, every time he got in trouble, it became my problem. When he got suspended for fighting, my mom sat at the kitchen table with swollen eyes and said, "Lauren, can you cover the groceries this month?" Your dad had to miss hours going to the school, and you know how fragile Jake is. He feels like a failure already. Fragile. That word became the family excuse for everything Jake ever did. By senior year, I had a 3.9 GPA, a partial scholarship to NC State, enough savings from Target, babysitting, and tutoring to cover the rest. My parents held a little celebration for me: store-bought cake, a congratulations card, a hug. But I still remember my dad's words as a kind of prophecy. "We're proud of you, kiddo. You're going to do big things. And don't forget about us when you're rich, okay?" He laughed like it was a joke. I laughed too. I didn't realize he meant it. College was the first time I ever had my own space, my own schedule, my own life. I worked in the campus library, took 18 credits most semesters, and lived in a tiny off-campus apartment with 2 roommates who thought ramen counted as a food group. My parents called often, but not to ask about my classes or my friends. The calls usually started with, "Hey, sweetie, how are you?" and ended with, "Could you help us out with something?" At first, the requests were small. "We're a little short on the electric bill this month. Can you spot us $80? Dad's truck needs new tires so he can get to work. Could you put it on your card and we'll pay you back?" Spoiler, they never paid me back. But I told myself, it's fine. They supported me growing up. This is what families do. Meanwhile, Jake dropped out of community college after 1 semester. He decided school wasn't for him and bounced between jobs: landscaping, delivering pizzas, working at a vape shop, always quitting or getting fired within a few months. Every time the story was, the manager had it out for him. He just needs something he's passionate about. He's under a lot of pressure. I felt pressure too. I just wasn't allowed to crumble. By 25, I'd graduated, landed an entry-level job at a healthcare software company in Raleigh, and upgraded from microwaved ramen to microwaved Trader Joe's meals. I signed my first lease without a roommate and cried in my empty apartment out of pure relief. My parents and Jake came to visit one weekend. My mom walked in, looked around, and said, "Wow, must be nice to have all this space to yourself." Jake flopped on my couch, opened TikTok, and said, "Damn, sis, you're ballin'." I was making $52,000 a year before taxes. I did not feel like I was ballin'. Still, I picked up the check at Olive Garden because of course I did. That same year, the "help us out" calls picked up pace. My mom fell and needed a minor procedure. They didn't have the cash for the deductible. "We'll pay you back when we get our tax refund, promise." They didn't. Jake got a DUI. He called me sobbing from the county jail. "Please, Lauren, don't tell Mom. Just bail me out. I swear I'll pay you back." I bailed him out. Again, no repayment ever came. Then my mom called and said quietly, "Honey, your dad's behind on the mortgage. Things are just really tight. The bank sent a weird letter. Could you maybe send us, like, $1,500 just this once?" Just this once became every few months. And every time I thought, next time I'll say no, something new would happen. Dad's back went out and he couldn't work for a while. The car broke down. Jake tried a business idea, flipping sneakers, that somehow turned into credit card debt. I got promoted to project coordinator, then project manager. My salary went up. So did their requests. At 29, I did something huge. I bought a small 2-bedroom condo in Raleigh. It wasn't fancy: white walls, builder-grade fixtures, a balcony that overlooked a parking lot, but it was mine. I remember sending my mom a picture of the keys in my hand, my face streaked with happy tears. She replied, "So proud of you, honey. Maybe one day, when we're old, that can be our retirement plan." I laughed at the winky face then. I should have paid attention. The first time someone actually moved into my condo without paying a cent, it was Jake. Just for a month, he'd said. He'd lost another job. His girlfriend had kicked him out. He had nowhere to go. My parents were too stressed to take him back in, so obviously he landed with me. He slept on my couch, ate my groceries, used my Netflix, and left energy drinks on every flat surface. At the end of the first month, when I gently brought up, "So, what's your plan?" he looked genuinely offended. "Damn, Lauren, I thought you were family." It ended up being 6 months. He left only after he found a new girlfriend with a bigger apartment. He didn't pay a single bill. He stole my Apple TV by accident when he moved out. My mom's take? "He's just figuring things out. Be patient. He's not like you. You've always had it together." By 32, I was maxing out a credit card every few months, bailing them out, just this once. $300 for Mom's prescriptions, $600 when Dad's truck needed a new transmission, $1,200 to stop the power from getting shut off right before Christmas. I had spreadsheets, actual spreadsheets, trying to track what I was sending them, what I owed on my own bills, and how to avoid my account overdrafting. Every time I tried to set a limit, my mom would say, "We don't have anyone else, Lauren. You're our rock. We're so lucky God gave you to us." It felt less like a compliment and more like a sentence. When I finally crossed into 6 figures, I thought maybe things would ease up. Maybe if I just made enough money, the stress would go away. Instead, the asks got bigger. They stopped calling them help and started calling them responsibilities. "You're the successful one. You don't have kids. You can spare it. You're the only one we can count on." I started having stress dreams about my bank app. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. and check my balance like it was a sick child. The day everything shifted, it wasn't some big blowout. It was a Tuesday. I was in the parking lot of my office building, sitting in my car with my hands locked on the steering wheel so tight, my knuckles were white. The email from HR was open on my phone. "Lauren, several coworkers have expressed concern. You've seemed distracted, exhausted, and on edge. We'd like to check in and ensure you're okay. Please stop by my office when you have a moment." I had been missing deadlines. Me. The one they used to joke was part robot. I'd been so busy putting out family fires via text and phone calls, arguing with billing departments for my parents, wiring money to stop late fees, explaining to Jake why, no, I could not co-sign for a truck, that my work, the one thing I'd always had under control, was slipping. I'd gotten 3 headaches that week that felt like someone was tightening a belt around my skull. My left eye twitched constantly. Coffee wasn't working anymore. I'd started sleeping with my phone under my pillow just in case something happened to my parents overnight and they needed me. My phone buzzed again. Mom. "Honey, can you talk? Jake is here and we really need to discuss something important about the future." I stared at the screen and my chest suddenly felt wrong, tight, like the air had been sucked out of the car. My heart pounded so hard, I could hear it in my ears. My fingers tingled. The edges of my vision blurred. For a full minute, I was convinced I was dying. I forced myself to unlock my phone and hit the health insurance app, fumbling for the Find Care feature. Instead, My thumb opened my photos. The first picture that popped up was the day I closed on my condo. I was standing in the empty living room, holding my keys and grinning, hair frizzy from the North Carolina humidity. I looked light, hopeful, like someone who believed the hardest part was behind her. In that parking lot, with my heart punching against my ribs and my mother's name flashing on the screen, I realized I had built a life that could have felt safe. They were burning it down from the inside, one favor at a time, and I was handing them the matches. I answered the call with shaking fingers, put it on speaker, and just listened. Mom launched straight into it. Okay, so Jake's finally found his calling, praise God. A sports bar. It's going to be a place for community, live music, big screen TVs for the games. He's already found this perfect spot, but the bank wants someone more stable on the loan paperwork. There was a pause, and then Jake's voice cut in. They said with your credit score and income, we'd be approved no problem. It's like, nothing for you, sis. You're always talking about investing. This is an investment. In family. My vision tunneled. I heard myself say, how much? Mom answered, too fast. Well, the loan would be around $230,000, but don't freak out. It's not like you'd actually have to pay it. You'd just be, on paper. And you could sell your condo, live with us for a while to help us all get ahead. We'd be one big family again. Sell my condo, move back in, co-sign a huge loan with the two people who couldn't keep a checking account positive and the brother who treated money like Monopoly cash. My chest tightened again. For the first time, instead of, how can I make this work? My brain whispered, what happens to you if this goes wrong? What happens when, not if, he defaults? I hung up. I didn't say goodbye. I didn't say, let me think about it. I just hit the red button. Then I walked into HR with my eyes still burning and said, I think I need help. They referred me to the company's employee assistance program. That's how I landed in a therapist's office the following week, sitting on a soft gray couch, twisting a tissue in my hands. Her name was Dr. Patel. She listened to me spill out 10 years of helping my family in one breathless rant. Then she said one sentence that poked a hole in everything. Lauren, you keep saying you're helping them. I'm going to use a different word, enabling. And I want to ask you something hard. If you stopped bailing them out, would they really die? Or would they just have to finally grow up? I stared at her. The idea felt like blasphemy. I'd been taught my entire life that if I didn't step up, everything would fall apart, and it would be my fault. She slid a piece of paper toward me and drew 2 circles. In one, she wrote, my responsibilities. In the other, their responsibilities. Your mortgage? She asked. We put that in my circle. Your parents' debts? We put that in theirs. Your brother's business loan? Definitely theirs. The paper looked so simple. My life did not feel simple. But something in me exhaled for the first time in years. People talk about big decisions like they're cinematic, like you stand up in the middle of a crowded room and declare your truth while dramatic music swells. My big decision happened on a Saturday afternoon, sitting at my dining table, staring at my bank app and a yellow legal pad. I'd spent the week doing math. How much I made, how much I spent, how much I'd given them over the years. The total I'd sent my family once I added it all up? $68,420. $68,420 in transfers, bill payments, temporary loans, and bailouts. My parents' entire story about me being comfortable suddenly made sense. I wasn't comfortable. I was a second household silently funding their bad choices. Dr. Patel had given me homework. Decide what kind of daughter you're willing to be, and what you're not willing to be anymore. So I wrote it out like a contract with myself. I will not co-sign loans for anyone. I will not sell my home to bail out other people's debts. I will not give money that puts me in debt or risks my stability. I will offer help in ways that do not require me to sacrifice my mental health, safety, or future. I am allowed to say no, even if they're upset. My hands shook as I wrote, but they didn't shake as much as they did when I thought about spending the next 10 years like the last 10. I took a deep breath, opened the family group chat, and typed. I've thought about the bar idea. The answer is no. I am not co-signing any loans or selling my condo. I will not be providing any more financial support beyond what I've already given. I need to focus on my own life and stability now. My thumbs hovered over the send button for a full minute. It felt like I was about to jump off a cliff. Then I hit send. The responses came quickly. From Mom. Lauren, I'm shocked. After everything we've done for you, this is how you treat your family? We raised you better than this. From Dad. Rarely the texter. Come on, kiddo. Don't be dramatic. It's just money. You can't take it with you. From Jake. Wow. Cold. Guess we know who the selfish one is. Enjoy your little condo. I hope it keeps you warm when you're alone at 40, LMAO. I stared at the screen, expecting to feel crushing guilt, panic, something. There was guilt, yes. But under it, there was also something else. Something small but powerful. Relief. I didn't respond. I put my phone in a drawer, grabbed my keys, and drove to a park across town, where no one could drop by and pound on my door. I walked the loop trail until my legs ached and my mind finally quieted. That evening, my mom called 10 times. I didn't answer. She left voicemails ranging from pleading, "Honey, I know you're stressed. Just call me back. We're a family. We can work this out," to manipulative. The Bible says we're supposed to help each other. Do you really think God is happy with what you're doing right now? Too aggressive. If your brother ends up on the street because you refuse to help, I hope you can live with that. I listened to them once, then deleted them. Dr. Patel had taught me a phrase. That's not mine. Their choices? Not mine. Their debts? Not mine. Their emotional reactions to my boundaries? Painful, but still not mine. My decision was made. Now I needed a plan. I didn't just decide to say no. I decided to reinforce that no with actual concrete changes. First, I made an appointment with a financial advisor, a woman named Erin who wore sensible heels and had the energy of someone who'd seen every money mistake in the book. I printed my bank statements, highlighted every transfer to my family, and dropped the stack on her desk like a confession. She flipped through, eyebrows climbing. "You don't have kids?" she asked. "No." "You're not married?" "No." "You own your condo. You have a decent 401k, but you're carrying credit card debt that doesn't belong to you and draining your savings for people who aren't contributing to your future. Do you see the problem?" I did. We came up with a budget that prioritized paying down my debt, building my emergency fund, contributing enough to my 401k to get the full match. And then she made me promise, out loud, you will not give another dollar to anyone until you've stabilized your own situation. I promised. Next, I called my phone provider and removed my parents and Jake from my plan. I'd put them on it years ago to save money. It had slowly become me paying for 3 extra lines plus their upgrade fees. I gave them a month's notice in the group chat. Your lines will be disconnected on X date. You'll need to get your own plans. Mom replied, so you're really cutting us off from everything now. This is cruel. I didn't reply. Then I did something that felt dramatic and petty and also absolutely necessary. I changed the locks on my condo. Jake had come and gone so many times I wasn't even sure who had keys anymore. Friends of his, ex-girlfriends, random people who'd crashed there. My home didn't feel as secure as it should. I called a locksmith, watched him swap out the deadbolt, and held the new keys in my palm like they were armor. The next step was the hardest, a face-to-face conversation. My parents insisted on talking this out like adults. So one Sunday, I drove back to my hometown, to the same house where I'd grown up, the siding now peeling, and the porch sagging a little more than I remembered. I almost turned around twice. Inside, the air smelled like cigarette smoke and fried food. The living room was cluttered with mismatched furniture and unpaid bills stacked on the coffee table. Jake was there too, leaning against the doorway, arms crossed. My mom went first. Lauren, we don't understand what's gotten into you. You've always been our rock. Lately, you're hard, cold. This isn't like you. I took a breath, felt my heartbeat in my throat, and said, what's gotten into me is therapy and math. My dad snorted. Oh, great. Some shrink told you to abandon your family. I reached into my bag and pulled out a printed spreadsheet, every transfer I'd made to them in the last 10 years, broken down by date and amount. I laid it on the table. This is $68,000, I said quietly. That's a down payment on another home. That's grad school. That's a new car and an emergency fund. That's my life. My mom picked up the paper, glanced at it, and shoved it back. We didn't ask you to do all that, she snapped. You offered. You throwing this in our face now? You did ask, I said, keeping my voice calm. Every time you called crying. Every time you said there was no one else. Every time you hinted that if I didn't help, something terrible would happen. Jake muttered, drama queen, under his breath. I turned to him. You asked me to co-sign a $230,000 loan and sell my condo, I said. Do you understand what it would mean if that business failed, Jake? I'd lose my home, my credit, my ability to retire someday. That's not a favor. That's asking me to set my life on fire to keep you warm. He rolled his eyes. You're overreacting. You always think you're better than us. My dad added, we're not saying you have to do everything, kiddo. But you're single, no kids. Good job. Meanwhile, we're struggling. The Bible says... I cut him off, gently but firmly. The Bible also says, let your yes be yes, and your no be no. I'm saying no, and that's not up for debate. My hands were shaking so hard, I tucked them under my thighs so they wouldn't see. My mom's eyes filled with tears. So that's it? You're just done with us? After everything we did for you? I felt a crack in my chest at that. I swallowed it down. I'm not done with you as people, I said. I'm done being your financial plan. I will not co-sign anything. I will not sell my home. I will not send money for bills. If you want help with resources, a credit counselor, a social program, job coaching, I will help you find those. But I will not keep handing you cash forever. Silence. Grafting boundaries onto a family that's used to unlimited access feels like surgery without anesthesia. Jake kicked the coffee table leg. You really turned into one of those rich bitches, he said. You'll see. That job won't love you back when you're old and alone. Maybe he thought that would land like a punch. But here's the thing. My job didn't scream at me. My job didn't call me 20 times a day. My job paid me when it said it would. At that moment, my job felt more like family than my actual family. I stood up. I'm going home now, I said. You know where I stand. My mom whispered, if you walk out that door, don't expect us to be there when you come crawling back. It hurt, but not enough to make me stay. I walks out. Here's the part where I wish I could tell you that after my big speech, my family had a wake-up call. That they got jobs, went to financial counseling, sent me tearful apology texts, and started paying me back. That is not what happened. What happened was more predictable. 3 months after I said no to the bar, Jake opened it anyway, with someone else co-signing the loan. A friend of a friend with a silent investor mentality and not a lot of sense. He texted me a picture of the grand opening. Neon sign, crowded bar, him behind the counter looking smug. See? Didn't need you after all. I didn't reply. 6 months later, the bar closed. Bad location, bad management, worse bookkeeping. The silent investor took him to court. I found out because my mom called sobbing, not to apologize, but to say, they're garnishing his wages. He doesn't even make enough to live as it is. How can people be so cruel? I listened and said gently, that's how business works, Mom. He signed paperwork. She sniffed. We raised you to have a heart, Lauren. Having a heart doesn't mean cleaning up every mess, I replied. You raised me to fix things. I'm unlearning that. I hung up before she could launch into another monologue. My parents' situation worsened, too. Without my extra cash, the buffer evaporated. They started getting shut-off notices for utilities, collection calls at all hours, letters with scary bold print and final notice stamped across the top. At one point, my dad called and said, they're talking about foreclosure, kiddo. This is serious. We might lose the house. Everything in me wanted to say, I'll send money, just this once. Instead, I took a breath and asked, have you talked to a housing counselor? There are HUD-approved programs. He cut me off. I don't need some stranger telling me what to do with my money. I thought, you obviously do, but I didn't say it. Then I don't know what to tell you, I said. I've given you everything I can. He hung up on me. They did end up in foreclosure. They had to move into a small rental townhouse across town. For a while, they couch-surfed with friends. Jake ping-ponged between girlfriends' apartments and a dingy extended-stay motel. The guilt tried to claw its way back in every time I saw a new crisis. But something else was happening too. My life was getting better. Without constant financial triage, My brain had space. I slept through the night. My anxiety, which had hummed like white noise in the background for years, turned down a few notches. At work, I started doing more than just survive. I thrived. I led a complex software implementation for a major hospital system and crushed it. Our team finished under budget and ahead of schedule. My boss pulled me into his office and said, "We're bumping your title to Senior Project Manager, and we want you to lead the new client onboarding program." With the raise, for the first time, I didn't immediately think, "Great, more to give my family." I thought, "Great, I can max out my Roth IRA and finally fix my busted dishwasher." I celebrated with friends, not with my parents. Not because I wanted to punish my parents, but because they hadn't earned that seat at the table. 2 years after the bar fiasco, I ran into one of my old coworkers at Target. She asked about my family. I hesitated, then said, "They're living with the consequences of their choices." She nodded slowly. "And you?" I thought about my condo, my slowly growing savings, the small balcony I'd finally decorated with plants instead of anxiety. "I'm finally living with the benefits of mine," I said. Karma didn't show up like a lightning bolt. It looked like cause and effect. They made choices. I stopped cushioning the landing. Life did what life does. Today, I'm still in my little 2-bedroom condo in Raleigh, except it doesn't feel little anymore. It feels safe. My second bedroom is no longer a spare crash pad. It's an actual guest room, with clean sheets and a locked door only I have the key to. Sometimes my friends stay there when they're passing through town. Sometimes my goddaughter does, when her parents need a date night and I offer to babysit. It is not a revolving door for people who refuse to grow up. My mornings look different too. I used to wake up to frantic texts and calls, start my day with someone else's emergency. Now, most mornings, I wake up to a silent phone, make my coffee, and sit on the balcony for 10 minutes before I even look at my notifications. I go to therapy every other week. Dr. Patel says my responsibility muscle is overdeveloped and my receiving help muscle is atrophied. We're working on that. I started doing things that once felt indulgent. Signing up for a pottery class on Thursday nights. Taking a long weekend trip to Asheville with friends and not feeling guilty the whole time. Hiring a cleaning service once a month so my home feels like a sanctuary, not a second job. I even did something old me would have called selfish. I booked a trip to Seattle for my 35th birthday, just because I'd always wanted to see the Pacific Northwest. I walked along the waterfront with a coffee in hand, bought myself a stupidly expensive raincoat that made me feel like the main character in a movie, and realized I liked my own company. I liked my life. My relationship with my family is minimal. We talk on holidays, sometimes. Texts are rare and mostly surface level. "Happy birthday. Merry Christmas. Heard there was a storm in Raleigh. You okay?" We don't talk about money. We don't talk about the past. We don't talk much at all. There's grief in that. I had to mourn the imaginary family I thought I had, the one where needing me wasn't confused with loving me. But there's peace, too. A few months ago, I was in the break room at work when a younger coworker, fresh out of college, sat down across from me with tears in her eyes. "Can I ask you something personal?" she said. I nodded. "Do you ever feel like your family only calls you when they need something? Like you're the responsible one, And everyone else gets to be messy? I laughed, but there was no judgment in it. Yeah, I said. I felt exactly like that. So I told her a shorter version of this story. Her eyes got wide. How did you do it? She asked. How did you actually say no? I thought about all the nights I'd spent crying over my bank statements, the panic attack in the parking lot, the therapy sessions, the spreadsheets, the long exhale when I finally hit send on that text. Badly, I said. Messily, with a lot of fear. And with a therapist, and a financial advisor, and friends who reminded me I wasn't a monster for wanting a life of my own. Then I told her the sentence that's become my North Star. Being a good daughter doesn't mean being their sacrifice. You are allowed to matter in your own life. If you're listening to this and your stomach's in knots because it feels a little too familiar, I want you to hear me. You are not selfish for needing stability. You are not cruel for needing rest. You are not ungrateful for wanting your money, time, and energy to also benefit you. You can love your family and still say, "No, I won't co-sign that. No, I won't sell my home. No, I won't go into debt for you. No, I won't answer 15 calls during my workday." You can set boundaries and still be a kind person. You can walk away from a dynamic that's killing you and still be a loving daughter, sister, cousin. Just one who loves herself, too. I didn't wake up one day suddenly strong. I was scared. I still am sometimes. But here's what I know now. The night my family asked me to sell my condo, they thought they were just asking for one more favor. What they were really asking was, will you give up your future so we don't have to face our present? And for the first time in my life, I answered, no. That no didn't destroy my life. It gave it back to me. And if any part of you is whispering that you might need to say your own no soon, I hope you'll at least consider listening.